Putin is saying on Reuters, being quoted, "We do not plan to occupy Ukrainian territory." And he's calling on Ukrainian soldiers to immediately lay down their weapons and go home. This is what TASS, which is another state agency in Russia, this is what TASS is quoting the president as saying. I mean, obviously there's a blame game on out here. Do you think any reprieve on the whole situation with regards to NATO and Ukraine's position in the NATO would help right now as a diplomatic solution?
Well, nothing in what you just said about Putin's statement had anything to do with NATO, nor does anything regarding NATO have anything to do with the current crisis.
Sure. But I'm just saying that that's been his long-standing demand, right, on this issue. Because he's also said that further NATO expansion, and it's, I'm sorry to interrupt you there, Ambassador. I just want to bring in, because he's said very much on IFAX that further NATO expansion and its use of Ukraine's territory is unacceptable.
Right. And this is a consistent talking point that you hear from Putin and the Kremlin, that it is NATO to blame for the current conflict. There is no progress of Ukraine joining NATO. There has been no talks about that. It has been, what are we now, 14 years since 2008 when NATO said, okay, Ukraine can be a member, but we're not ready. Nothing has happened. All of the things that we're seeing now are of Putin's origin, not NATO's origin, or not a Russian reaction to NATO. This is Russia trying to reassemble a Russian empire in which it believes that Ukraine is an integral part of Russian civilization. 99% of Ukrainians reject that. They do not see themselves that way. But that doesn't matter to Putin and to Russia. They feel that they have a right to overtake Ukraine. And so we are seeing that play put into motion right now.
It certainly looks like an upending of the post-Cold War era world order, doesn't it, Kurt? By the philosophy that you've just laid out, whereby President Putin has ideas of recreating the Russian Empire or the Soviet Union, who potentially would be next if he feels that he's got the right to move into Ukraine? Who else would he feel the right to move into?
Right. That's a great question, because Ukraine is the biggest and most difficult country to subdue. It's 40 million people. It is the largest country that is fully geographically within Europe. Taking Ukraine or subduing Ukraine is a major issue. If he can get away with this, then doing the same thing to a country like Georgia of less than 4 million people, or a country like Moldova of less than 3 million people, that would be a piece of cake compared to the challenge with Ukraine. So taking on Ukraine now opens the door for Russia to then be reasserting its dominance in all of these former Soviet states. As the United States, or as a member of NATO, we should be very concerned about this, because Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, they were all members, or not members, but they were occupied by the Soviet Union from 1940 onwards. And part of the Soviet Union, they regained their independence. Does Putin seek to reverse that? And if so, we would have to defend those states against Russian aggression. And what about the deployment of NATO forces in Bulgaria or Romania or Poland, something that Russia objects to? Should we now be worried about Russia dictating the terms of how NATO countries defend themselves?